There's a new president of the third-generation family-owned Butler Machinery Company with us today to talk about an expansion into 2 states, entrance into a new territory, and about the culture of Butler Machinery Company. And we're going to talk a little bit about Big Iron, too, because we're excited to be out at Big Iron with the team from Butler. And the Butler Machinery Arena is a new addition to the Big Iron grounds. It should be a lot of fun. The president and CEO, 4th family member to lead Butler, is with us, Twylah Blotsky. Hi, Twylah.
Good afternoon. Good to be here.
Do you feel the pressure of being the 4th family leader, 4th family member to lead this great company?
I do feel the pressure when you have a legacy like that before you, and you know that for 65 years you've been in business. You sure hope you're not the one to mess it up. So it is a lot of pressure.
But it's good.
But it's good. It's good pressure.
You rely on that bloodline, right?
Yes.
Yeah. What lessons do you take from your parents, from your grandparents in this?
You know, I'm one that likes to look at history and learn from it and to be true to who we are. And so for the fact that we were a dirt contractor prior to becoming a machinery company, our focus has always been on supporting that customer after the sale. And that has stayed true all the way through. It's in our roots, it's in our DNA, and no matter whether it's construction or ag, we like to support that customer any way we can.
What does that look like to support the customer after the sale?
For us, it's 24/7. We have service departments that answer phones 24/7. We'll find a technician to send out. We have parts, once again, 24/7. You can call in an emergency number. We can get you the part. Person comes in and pulls it. We have salesmen that answer their phones at all times and hours. So in a time where people are maybe closer held to their personal life versus work life, I think we still have a culture in our company of always taking care of that customer no matter the time or day.
And what do your customers say about that?
Well, I've had quite a few customers that say the salesman may have sold the first machine, but your product support sells the second, third, and fourth. We've also been complimented by customers that we may be 50 miles farther than their previous supplier, but we support them better, even though we're farther away. So that's a nice compliment.
And I know for a fact that I've heard stories from your employees about the culture in recognizing when you're living up to those standards. So you recognize your employees too. And this little coin that you gave me a copy of, I'd heard about before, talking about excellence and safety and the team and customer driven and integrity and accountability with the mission right on the back to build long-term relationships founded on trust, creating mutual growth and success. Talk about this and what it's for.
Well, our mission did change slightly, and I took out the term with our customers in there. It used to be to build long-term relationships with our customers founded on trust. So for me, they're still super important and a cornerstone of who we are, but it's also about building relationships with one another. Within our company, we spend a lot of time with these people. So how are we with them? How are we in our communities? How are we with our suppliers? So that shift in focus has been kind of the cornerstone of us building out who the new Butler is. And I say the term new, it's kind of always been there, but it's kind of reinvigorating it. And our 5 values that turned into 6 a couple years ago, adding safety, that is who we are. It's what defines us as a company, as a team, and really gives us a purpose for every day that we're there and how to make decisions.
Talk a little bit about the challenges today. I mean, just getting equipment is a challenge, and obviously your father before you and your brother before you and your grandfather, they didn't necessarily have COVID and, supply chain disruptions like we have now. I mean, this is an extraordinary time, and people who are there with a check or cash on the barrelhead can't even get machines sometimes from some of your competitors. How are you maneuvering that at Butler?
Day by day, it is definitely a challenge. And there's no doubt when I took over the company and a pandemic hit right afterwards, it was like, now what? Definitely couldn't look to the past to learn from that. But with our suppliers, we are constantly in touch with them on what we have going on and working within them, getting our supply. On the egg side of the business, we had geared up ahead of it. We had orders in, gearing up for our Fent launch. So we are probably positioned a little bit differently than others in that we already had those orders in. So we are going to be sitting, I think, fairly well on the egg side of the business throughout the year. On the construction side, we're just taking it day by day with Caterpillar and how we source equipment from other dealers to fit the needs of our customers.
Let's talk a little bit about Fent for a minute. for long as I can remember, it's always been a battle versus, red, green, yellow, and kind of like Ford, Chevy, Chrysler, right? But you're green now too, and embracing it, right?
We are, and we call it a different shade of green. But we're excited about what Fendt brings us for an opportunity from the engineering that is there in those machines, and what customers are already experiencing with the Gold Care program of having support for 5 years after the machine is sold. A lot of excitement around it, and we're excited that we're able to deliver that to our 3 states that we're offering ag, and now 4 states with Montana.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a minute as well. Talk about Fendt and some of the innovation you see from them. I'm just a radio guy, but I've seen up close some of this innovation and technology, and seen the combines and seen the tractors at Big Iron, and it's, to me, even to a city kid, extraordinary what you see in the way of a difference there. But talk about what they've brought to this market.
Well, the biggest thing for us was the CVT transmission and how the power is put to the ground. But I will be the first to tell you, I am not the machine expert, did not grow up operating the machine, so I'm not a spec person. Mark Madsen, happy to have him come over here for a talk. But for me, from what I've heard from our customers that have them, they are very excited about the operation and how they stand up for horsepower to the ground and what they're able to get accomplished with them.
Fascinating. We're chatting with Twylah Blotsky today. She is the 4th family member to lead the company, Butler's new president and CEO. Let me ask you a little bit about Big Iron and the fact that folks that attend Big Iron today, which for folks that don't know, is a big deal. I don't know what else to say it, but in agriculture, all of the people that come from around the world to see the latest and the greatest in ag equipment and all the innovation that happens there, the minds that come together as much as the machines that come together, is pretty extraordinary. And there is a new Butler Machinery Arena right in the middle of the Big Iron grounds, and folks will see that for the first time. Talk about that decision, Twylah.
Well, we were really excited when the Red River Valley Fair came to us and talked to us about having that sponsorship of the building. And the fairgrounds in general, I was a 4-H'er growing up. It's near and dear to my heart. For 10 years, the fair was the highlight of my summer, and a lot of great memories out there. But being offered up the sponsorship of that building, I think, really brings the support of the agriculture to the whole community. Big Iron is huge for our region, and how many people it brings into that show and showcases all the different brands and lines that are out there. And to be a partner really with them for items all year round at the fairgrounds, we're really excited to do that with them.
Yeah, and that arena just isn't a Big Iron Butler Machinery Arena. It's there all year long. There's events going on right there. In fact, big fireworks show underway as we speak, and you can't get in there with all the credentials in the world because of the amount of explosives that are there and the different receptions that'll be happening in the Butler Machinery Arena. But good point. It's going to be it's going to live well beyond Big Iron every year, specific to Big Iron and the kind of equipment you'll have there and availability equipment. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, for our show, we'll showcase everything that we have from our Fendt lineup, other AGCO brands such as Massey, Rogator, Terragator, Gleaner. We always have some of our cat lineup for the skid steers that are used in the ag market. And it will definitely be a little different being inside. We've been used to being outside and dealing with the wind, the rain, and everything else that comes at us.
Heat once in a while.
And heat.
Freezing cold some other times, yeah.
Sometimes we sell a lot of stocking hats when it's that cold out of our booth. But we're excited to be inside and kind of see what that means for our customers and showcase off the Butler Machinery Arena in the process.
And as I mentioned, there's really a meeting of the minds as much as anything related to what's next, what's around the curve at Big Iron. What most excites you about the relationship you have with growers, with ag producers right now, and what's next, what's coming in the way of things that make their life easier?
Well, there's no doubt there's going to be a lot of changes in technology and farming. When you look at what happened 25 years ago to now and what the next 25 years is going to bring, precision ag and autonomy in farming, I think, are going to be the biggest things that are ahead of us. And what's that going to mean to a supplier? What's it going to mean to a grower? But it's going to continue to evolve and change because the people side of it has become more complex. everyone has a hard time finding individuals to operate equipment, whether it's on the construction side or whether on the egg side and on farms. And that's what's going to drive, I think, a lot of changes in technology.
And, machines cost more, and they have more features on them. But, the grower gets an ROI on those machines. And that precision agriculture that's out there now is, I don't know that a lot of us understand it that aren't in your world, but to take the same acreage 20 years ago, 10 years ago, to today, to 10 years from now, is incredible when you look at the amount of growth that comes from that level of innovation, correct?
It is. When you look at what's able to be produced out of there, and even this year where you have such a dry year, that change in technology does help them in wet years, dry years, from how the seed is planted to how the fertilizer is delivered to that seed and when it's delivered. It all makes a difference even in drought years. I think even myself, I'm in the business. I don't know enough about it. Luckily, I have a great team around me. But it is really interesting when you get into the science of growing and all the different experiments that are going on right now and looking at changes in technology. And the autonomy piece, I think, is really interesting when you think about potentially planting and no one's in the seat of that tractor.
And you look at the challenges that have come growers' way, most recently this unbelievable drought, extreme drought, record drought, whatever you want to call it. And then couple that with the Trump years when there was disruption to forge new ground and trade deals, and find that there was uncertainty there. Yet, it seems to me the investments in agriculture continue to happen despite that uncertainty, don't they? You're doing well, right?
People are always going to eat food and need food. It doesn't matter what's going on in the world. We will need to grow food, we will need to harvest food, and we'll need to make food. So I think it's always a great business to be in. And even with COVID and what we were dealing with a year ago when everybody else was potentially looking at businesses that were slowing down, farmers, no matter what, were going to plant those fields, whether COVID was happening or not. So for us, I'm very grateful for the business that we are in and to be able to share in that with them. But people are always going to eat. I think that's the one given.
The new president of third-generation family-owned Butler Machinery Company, Twylah Blotsky, with us today. Let's talk a little bit about a brand new facility, the purchase of 2 others, bringing Butler now to 20 locations across 4 states with a desire to continue to grow your 800-plus member team. Some people are shrinking right now. Some people are in a holding pattern. Obviously, Butler is bully for growth. Tell us why.
I play the long game in life, Scott. I think you can't look at what's going on now. You always have to look ahead to the future. And for us, that involves growth. And having additional stores in our footprint gets us closer to some customers we're already selling to, but this will be easier for us to support them for both parts and service, getting a little bit closer to them.
Talk about these markets. Watertown, South Dakota, building purchase there. Sidney, Montana, that's a brand new territory for Butler. And then this state-of-the-art building down in Kearney, Nebraska that's gaining attention. Why those markets?
We've been in Kearney with a very small location, mostly as a parts location, and then resident field techs in the area. We've been growing down in Nebraska, and Kearney is a growing city, and we're finally able to get some land and put together a deal to build a brand new building, very similar to you see around our territory in Devil's Lake and Huron, Pierre, South Dakota. It'll be almost a same image as those buildings. But for Kearney, it's going to position us in a way different way to serve those customers. Having an indoor facility now to bring tractors and combines in to repair them versus having to work in the field all the time. We'll also be expanding the amount of parts inventory we have.
Tell me a little bit about the comparison on those facilities. Those states, right? So we always think North Dakota is the biggest deal of all, right? Just because we're North Dakotans. But South Dakota, obviously, Nebraska, Montana, these are also huge egg markets as well. How do you compare them?
It is different. How they farm is different. I think one of the biggest things that stood out for me going down to Nebraska, up in North Dakota, especially the farther north you go, it is a rush to get that crop off the field. When it's ready, you go, and sometimes you're going 24 hours a day. In Nebraska, they'll harvest, and then when their grain bin, or they don't really have grain bins, when they don't have a place to take it in, then they just stop. And then crop may sit there for a couple of days, and then they may harvest a little bit more, and then it sits there. The sense of urgency is different based upon their weather. And for us that grew up in North Dakota, that was a bit of a shock to the system.
We don't have that luxury, do we?
No, we don't. When it's ready to go, you need to go.
You mentioned the parts facilities in the new buildings. Just talk a little bit. That obviously comes in the service after the sale culture of Butler as well. But I know Caterpillar has some remanufactured facilities here as well. Just the parts world. Tell us a little bit about how that's evolving.
Parts is one of those things that as I look to the future, I wonder how it's all going to change. You already have 3D printing happening, and they're testing out hardening or baking the part afterwards. I envision a time in the future where you may order a part and it will be printed on site and a 3D printer and potentially hardened and delivered to the customer. That is one of the things that, as we keep track of the changing technology, I think parts is going to impact us. In the meantime, we're committed to having parts on our shelf and being able to get parts to the customer in a very timely fashion. Our network that we have around the 3 states and now our 20 locations are interconnected by overnight service. So if we have a part in one location that the other one needs, by the next morning it can arrive to serve that customer in that area.
That's great. Anything else you want to tell us about your tenure now, your leadership as a 4th family member at Butler, and what the future looks like?
Well, I'm certainly excited, and definitely my approach as I come in might be a little bit different. I didn't grow up in the iron, operating the iron. I grew up on the number side of the business, but for me, it's always been about the people, both from the customer standpoint and from our team at Butler around us. That's what excites me, is seeing them grow and develop. We are now kind of really focusing on the next 15 years and how we develop our people internally to take on bigger and better jobs. So who's going to replace me in 15 years on the executive team? We like to grow from within, and so we're always looking for talented individuals that are driven and humble and want to serve our customers and believe in what we do to join our team.
Fantastic. Twylah, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see you at Big Iron.
We will. We'll be out there.
Butler Machinery Arena will be our home for all 3 days of Big Iron, and we're looking forward to it. Twylah Blotsky is new in this position, but it's a family tradition for sure, as she's now president and CEO, 4th family member to lead Butler Machinery and Butler Equipment. Thanks for listening.